Okay, welcome back and welcome to the final set of verses on chapter 3. I'm sure all of you might be enjoying chapter 3. Every chapter of Gita is very unique, and this third chapter is so unique because it's the starting point in our spiritual practice. Where to get started, that is chapter 3. We had seen some beautiful ideas which we'll try to recap next week. So following that, and it's a long weekend, so we can take a break, and first week of June we can get started with chapter 4. But next week, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to recap the entire essence of Karma Yoga, or not Karma Yoga, but chapter 3. And once we cover up to chapter 5, I will try to recap a full-blown discussion on Karma Yoga, which come across chapter 2, 3, 4, and 5. And in fact, Karma Yoga is going to come back again in chapter 18, but we will do a preview of that. So this is what I was trying to do. So with that, without any delay, let's get started. We will get started with some chanting. So Anu, if you could chant from verse 36 to 43, we can pick up the thread from verse 40 where we left last week.
Shall we do Sahana Bhavatu?
Absolutely. I'm sorry, I missed it. Please do with the invocation.
Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunattu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha. Atha Tritiyodhyayah Karma Yogaha. Arjuna Uvacha Atha Kena Prayuktoyam Papam Charati Purushaha Anichannapi Vashneya Baladiva Niyojitaha. Shri Bhagavanuvacha Kama Esha Krodha Esha Rajo Guna Samudbhavaha Mahashano Mahapapma Vidhyena Miha Vairinam Dhumena Priyate Vanhihi Yatha Darsho Malena Cha Yatholbena Vruto Garbhaha Tatha Tenedamavrutam Avrutam Jnanametena Jnanino Nityavairina Kamarupena Kaunteya Dushpurena Nalena Cha Indriyani Mano Buddhihi Asyadhisthanamuchyate Etairvimohayatyeshaha Jnanamavritya dehinam Tasmat tvamindriyanyadau Niyamya bharatarshabha Papmanam prajahihyenam Jnana vijnana nashanam Indriyani paranyahu Indriyebhyah param manaha Manasastu para buddhihi Yo buddheh paratastu saha Evam buddheh param buddhva Samstabhyatmanamatmana Jahi shatrum mahabaho Kamarupam durasadam. Om Tatsaditi Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Karma Yogo Nama Tritiyodhyayah
Excellent. That's great. So we were discussing the final topic. Let's pick up the thread where we left. Krishna had already explained what is Karma Yoga, what is the benefit of Karma Yoga, how one should practice Karma Yoga, the purpose of Karma Yoga, all those details, how long one should practice Karma Yoga, all those details were very well discussed. But Arjuna had a question on verse 36, which is naturally a question from all of us. Looks great. Karma Yoga looks great. The end seems to be great. Every step said is logical. But there is a practical difficulty. What is that practical difficulty? Without my knowledge, without my wish, some inner enemy is forcing me to do wrong things. Athakena prayuktoyam papam charati purushaha anischannapi vashneya belariva niyojitaha. Somebody by force, I want to do exercise, but something in me is forcing me to sleep. I want to do healthy, but eat healthy, but something in me is forcing me to eat junky food. I want to be righteous. I want to be good to my children, be nice to everybody, but something else is forcing me knee-jerk reactions. What is that? So Krishna answered. See, the root cause of all these challenges is ignorance. Because when you identify yourself with your body and mind, you take the characteristics of the body as yourself and try to react to that. The manifestation of this ignorance or wrong identification with the body and the mind is in the form of binding desires. Desires are okay, but the binding desire is a problem. Because if I think that my well-being, my state of being happy and contented is dependent upon X, Y, and Z, that is what is binding desires. And as a result, any binding desire comes naturally with anxieties and worries. And any obstruction between me and my binding desire will manifest as anger. And this will steal away from your discrimination, your intellectual analysis, your wisdom, and make you to do wrong things. And Krishna said this type of binding desires are of three types: sattva, rajas, and tamas. Because the sattvic desires, binding desires, are easy to remove. If you remember, what was the example Krishna used? The smoke covering the fire. So even without our own effort, like a passing by breeze can just remove those obstacles. So that is sattvic. It can be removed immediately and it can be removed easily. Whereas the second category we heard was the rajasic type of binding desires. If you remember, what was the example?
Dust on a mirror.
Correct, exactly. The dust on a mirror needs some effort, more effort than removing a smoke. So you may have to take some detergent, some cleaning agent, and sometimes you may need to wipe it off. But still, it's easy to manage. The last, or the tamasic desire, is compared to the body in a womb. So you need to take care of that for some time, and eventually means you have to suffer some pain to get that out. So that was the brilliant examples given. So that is tamasic desires. So having said that, Krishna went to the 40th verse, which is where we left last week. The 40th verse was, where exactly is the location of this binding desire? Where exactly they are located? So we heard that its location, right? We said that Athishtanam means the infrastructure or the location, etc., is said to be the sense organs, the mind, and intellect. So this is where these are the equipments which can be affected or deludes me from doing what needs to be done. So let's try, means that is we identified the location, and now how to control that. What is the strategy? So that's what we are going to see today. So let's see verse 41. One second, let me share. Anu, please chant. Yeah.
Tasmat tvamindriyanyadau niyamya bharatarshabha papmanam prajahihyenam jnana vijnana nashanam.
So what is the strategy? How to control these binding desires? So Krishna tells, Tasmat. What is the literal meaning of Tasmat?
Therefore.
Therefore. Because he identified where exactly these binding desires are impacted. It is the intellect, it is the mind, it is the sense organs. So therefore, O Bharata Rishabha. So Bharata Rishabha. What is the literal meaning of Rishabha? Anybody knows?
Nandi.
Bull.
Yeah.
So Bharata Rishabha means just like Nandi is the best among the bulls, or Arjuna, who is the prominent among all the Bharata dynasty, the people in that particular dynasty, oh Arjuna. He just called out Arjuna. Oh, great one. See, this is psychological, right? When you say that, oh, you are a great person, so you should be able to live in par with the other standards. That's a technique used in the good old times itself, Bhagavad Gita. So, Tasmat Bharatarshabha. Tasmat means therefore, O Bharatarshabha, Niyamya. Niyamya means control, manage, etc. Control. What? Indriyani. Adau. Adau means in the beginning or at the outset or in the beginning. Control Indriyani. Indriyani means the plural, in the sense organs. So first control the sense organs. So Krishna gives the solution, right? Where exactly this is affected is the sense organs, the mind, and the intellect. But Krishna tells first control the sense organs and then go step by step further. So let us see the literal meaning and then we will come to the deeper meaning, right? And then he says, Tvam prajahi, meaning they destroy. In he means indeed, enam, this, papatmanam. So by controlling the sense organs first, please destroy this sinner. Papatmanam means binding desires. And what is the characteristics of this binding desire? It is jnana vijnana nashakam. It is a destroyer of your knowledge and wisdom. So very simple, Krishna tells Arjuna to control your, starting with the sense organs, you start control and therefore thereby destroy this powerful sinner who is capable of destroying your knowledge and wisdom. It's very simple. So let's say that, I think, do you remember, right, the Kargil war? The Pakistan came to these Kargil hills and started firing. When we locate enemy, even in World War II, you saw that strategy. When the enemy come and attack you, what is the first thing you try to do as a defense strategy? You try to cut the supply for this enemy, isn't it? That's what they did in the World War II, and that's what everybody does. The moment you means cut down the supply, what is going to happen? It is easy to control the enemy, because if the enemy continue to get these supplies, they become powerful. So this binding desire gets its supply input from the external world through the sense organs. And it is relatively easy to control the sense organs. So even though you feel, say, eating junky food, you can put some control externally. Okay, means I'm not going to eat this much. Even though I feel like eating, I can control it. I can force my sense organs to do certain things. Mind you, this won't work on a long term, because if you cannot control the mind and intellect, it will not work. But to just get an advantage, first you can say with your will, you can try to control your sense organs. How to control these sense organs? There is a lot of techniques coming in the Bhagavad Gita later point of time. You are not forcefully controlling, but you are trying to make it moderate. Sometimes you are trying to deflect it, but the first level of control has to be employed at the external level, or the sense organs. First of all, like, I'm not putting myself into a situation where I have very difficult, it is very hard for me to control. That is one choice. Second thing is that I'm putting certain control on my sense organs. So first level of control is at the sense organs. And then you control your mind and then intellect, and that is how you eventually put the control. Because once the sense organs are controlled, what you do is you control your mind using your intellect. So the practice of Karma Yoga itself, right? We are intellectually convinced. So what we try to do, as I said the other day, you start with your Pancha Mahayajna and you try to remove your tamasic actions. All this is done with your intellect. But before that, you need to have some control of the mind. So first you control the sense organs, then you control the mind through some of these meditative pranayama practices. And after that, with the intellect, you try to control. And this process will work. So once again, Krishna tells, you need to conquer this enemy. And this enemy is very powerful. And this enemy can be controlled by first controlling the sense organs, followed by mind, and followed by intellect. So the control over the sense organs is, you try to make it moderate. You try to cut off certain things which is completely unhealthy. Even though your mind is craving for it, with the willpower, you try to control it at the sense level. And then for mind, you try to do some meditation. You try to do some pranayama. Such practices, you can control your mind. And finally, the intellect can be convinced through the discussions we had earlier. So this is the sequence. So, and the clarification is, this way you can kill this enemy, which is one of the most sinner. What is that? This binding desires. And what is the problem of this enemy? This enemy is very powerful. It can impact your jnana and vijnana. Jnana means knowledge, vijnana means wisdom here. So please try to have control over your sense organs. Mind you, Krishna didn't say that you have to stop eating everything or you have to stop doing everything. He said you have to have control. Having control versus running away is different, right? So one solution, you don't want to get accident. You can say that you don't want to drive at all. If you tell your child, don't drive the car, is that feasible? That is not feasible. What you have to do is that have control over the car. Try to have control over your car. So the other day I was talking to a friend of mine. He had a road accident. So he was telling me that the cop was advising him after the accident because it was not his fault. Somebody just cut through a red light and hit this friend of mine. And he was telling the cop gave a good lesson. The lesson seems interesting. The cop said, drive with an understanding that every other driver is an idiot. They may not stop at red light. They may put the indicator and do not turn. So anticipate and drive. So have that control. So that's exactly what Krishna is saying. When you drive means when you engage your body in the world, sense organs in the world, you need to know what you have to see, how much you have to see, and how long you have to see. So I forgot that person's name, but in psychology there is something called, I think it is Brad effect or Trad effect. I forgot. There was a great historian in ancient France or that part of the Europe. So this historian was living in poverty. He didn't have any money, and his daughter was about to get married, and there was absolutely no money. And somehow the Queen of Russia came to know about that this person is suffering. And she had seen his historic writing and the work, and she was so much impressed with this guy. So at that time, this Queen provided almost, I think it is British Queen or Russian Queen, I don't know who it is, but some Queen. They gave some 100,000 pounds, which is more than $150,000 here. And at that time, that was a big money. So with that money, he was able to take care of the marriage of his daughter. And still he had a lot of fun. So what happened was this person just brought one fancy item in his room. Then what happened? He thought, okay, this couch is so good. It needs a table. Then he brought a table. Then he thought this carpet is not good. A carpet came in. Then he thought, okay, this wall painting is not good. It is not matching with the other two. What happened eventually? All his money gone. And this is known as, in psychology, it is known after that person's name. I thought it is Brad. I'll tell you, I'll post it in the group. It says that this effect. And this is the whole shopping psychology, right? You buy one thing, and then you buy another thing, then you buy another thing without control. And shoppers know that very well. The whole shopping psychology, like even in Amazon, when you buy one thing, right, you get a pop-up. Would you like to buy this? And people usually fall into that trap. It's more than what you need. You buy or you engage with what is presented to you. This is the whole psychology of shopping and sales. So you need to have control. Of course, you need to buy what you need, but you don't need to buy based on what is presented to you. I had even that problem. I'm so much interested in books. So when I buy one book, they always give another 2 suggestions. And earlier, what I used to do, I used to buy those 2 and put it in my Kindle. Then eventually I realized how much I can read. So nowadays what I do is, unless and otherwise it's not a big sale or anything like that, until I won't finish one book, I won't buy another book. In Kindle means you can buy it immediately, right? So once I started implementing that, yeah, it's good. When I finish one book, I may buy one another book. It's really good. I will have always some 10 book in the pipeline to read. So it's not that I need to dynamically buy one book for my next reading. It will go to the 11th queue. So that's very important. And that's what Krishna is telling here. Have you,
Rajaji,
I'm
same
just
page.
interested in, everybody has such like uncontrolled purchase or uncontrolled. Some people are food like that, right? So they started, okay, wanted to eat moderate, then eat one thing and eat another thing. Especially this happens in the bars and restaurants when you go out with friends. You go there with a moderate mindset, but finally you don't even realize that.
I do exactly that with Amazon and also with Kindle. And I follow the same strategy now, that unless I finish a book, I'll never purchase my next one. And interestingly, I haven't purchased a book in the last 6 months.
That's not good.
I know.
Now then you need to have some positive habits.
Yes.
To make sure that that is happening. How many of you read the book called Atomic Habits?
I started.
It's one of the best book for habit building. It is a bestseller. This book has some wonderful technique, and you may see like a lot of Vedantic connection in that book.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So Arnabji, like I would request you to read and finish that book and come back and talk to us.
And talk about it, right? Yeah.
2 reasons. One is it will help you to finish that book.
Yes.
Second thing is it will help others to listen about that book.
Sure.
Okay.
So Rajaji, I had a question, right? What
Sure.
is the difference between this behavior pattern that you just described and between that of an addict who's addicted to, say, alcohol, or because it's the same mind process?
No, slightly
right?
different. Addiction means you're too much addicted to alcohol alone. So here what happens is, means this guy was not addicted to, say, a tablecloth. What happened? Having seen something, his mind is so fickle that he was not addicted to a tablecloth or a particular painting or anything like that. Desire, right? It's just one after the other. It just triggered one after the other. So that's it. Arnabji, root cause is the same thing, but the manifestation is different. An alcoholic addict always go after alcohol alone. Here it will be a variable. That's all the difference is. But no means anything you do, the idea, the strategy of the Gita is what exactly it means control. Like if you're a tennis player, when you have control over the bat, what exactly it means? You can pick up the ball and hit where you want.
Yeah.
So what controls you, right? You control, or that other thing controls you?
Correct, exactly. So look at the tennis. That's the best example, right? First time when you go to a tennis court, you swing the bat, you won't even get the ball. Later point of time, what happens? You hit the ball, but where the ball goes? Somewhere else.
Yeah.
But over a period of practice, what is going to happen? You can pick up the ball, you can hit fairly well. But if you don't practice, what is going to happen? Yeah. So when you and take these, see, the difference in Gita, or what Gita is trying to make you is treat your sense organs, the body, the mind, etc., like these bat. You need to have that skill. You need to have that skill developed, how to use them. These are fantastic instruments. Without that bat, you cannot hit that ball. Imagine in your initial driving days, what happens? The car will, means you can look at the car. The first time when you drive,
You lose control.
you don't have control.
You don't have.
And that's how we'll go right now. Because when like there is a Amazon pop-up something, what happens? My car will go that direction.
Yes.
Is that the destination I want to go?
No.
No. So you have to practice. You have to have that practice. Understand that the sense organs and the mind and the intellect should be under your control. So that's, and forget about all these complexities and everything. How do you gain the control? I told you the simple technique. Start with this Karma Yoga. What does that mean? Start doing Panchamahayajna. My friends, please believe me in this. If you do that and try to practice this Ishwararpana Buddhi with the Prasada Buddhi, at least with this Panchamahayajna, you will see that you have, means it, what you are doing is you are strengthening your inner muscles with this practice, followed by meditation, pranayama. You see that wonderful control comes to your hand. And actually, means that's why I referred this book called Atomic Habits. This book has a lot of strategy in the modern world. How do you form a habit? One example, which I try to implement, which practiced, means I'm practicing it, is, suppose you have a daily morning routine. Think through, like you create a habit scorecard. Like what do you do on a daily basis, like a programming? So when you get up, see, I take a coffee because that coffee awakes me. The other day, Gina was telling, right? Arise and awake in the morning. So if I take a coffee, it's something that you won't forget every day. So when you take that coffee, if you can say that every time after brewing the coffee, if I can do a 1 minute pranayama, you won't miss it, my friends. So what you are doing is you're including another habit, piggybacking on a already well executing habit, because you won't miss that coffee. And this pranayama will follow that. And eventually what is going to happen? This will together, a compound habit will be there. So Arnabji, I'm looking towards you. Just read this book and come back to us with some good points. And I can connect that with the later part of the Bhagavad Gita. There is a lot of techniques given in the Gita. You can see very similar pattern in that book.
Okay, I'll do that, Rajaji. I'll share my learnings from that book. I know that what you just gave us, the habit tree, that is a strategy from that book too.
Yeah, exactly. And you see, it means I can show you similar sets of verses in Gita.
Right. That would be extremely interesting.
Yeah, no, that is it's a good old wisdom. And what I'm trying to tell you is, don't complain that I'm like this. Some people say that I'm lazy. Some people, and another very similarity in that book and Bhagavad Gita is, let me take 1 more minute and tell you that this is very important. A lot of time we want to change habits, right? But you cannot just change the goal with the old set of process. It's a good management technique, right? So you want to have a new process flow, new goal. What is that new goal? I wanted to reduce my weight by 15 pounds. But the process I follow is the good old process. More sleep, eat junk food, etc. So the goal is good initially. So one of the definition of Karma Yoga, later point of time, it is a famous quote by Shankara. Plan out your work and work out your plan. You have to have a supporting process to reach your goal. Most of the people are very much fond of the goal. They write on New Year Day, I want to reduce 10 pounds this year. I wanted to be healthy this year. I wanted to read book every day. And then what is the process they follow? The good old process. So unless you change the process in such a way that that process can be followed, this result will forget it. It will not happen. So Shankara tells, plan out your work and then work out your plan with the process. And he tells the former without latter is a sheer waste of time. And then he adds the latter without the former. No direction. You just try to change process alone and work. It will be an unproductive confusion. Steve Jobs used to love this, and he used to quote this left and right. But this is a diversion, but this is what it is. So,
Rajesh,
yeah.
question. Jnana is knowledge. What's Vijnana again?
Vijnanam is a knowledge which is with experience.
Knowledge with experience?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the difference. So theoretical knowledge. Good example. 18th century, we knew that theoretically about electricity. But when the electrical age came, like when the electricity was rolled out, it became as part of our daily life. It is available for our practical use is much later. A theoretical knowledge of electricity alone would not have done that. But practically how to use it, how to distribute it, and how it can be put into your day-to-day experience. That is one thing. And another thing is that we said the other day, right? I can very well explain you about Kedarnath right now. If you haven't gone to Kedarnath, still you get some knowledge. That is jnana. But when you go and see Kedarnath directly, that is much different from what I tell you. So that's a vijnana. So that's the one is theory. The other one is knowledge with experience.
Yeah, thanks.
Great. So let's continue. Then the next verse is a simple verse, but let's listen. It's a conclusion, the next two verses. Anu, could you please chant?
Indriyani paranyahu indriyebhyah param manah manasastu para buddhihi yo buddheh paratastu saha.
So he tells the order of subtleness or the importance, the hierarchy. What is more important? So Krishna tells, Ahu. Ahu here means they say, it is said. What? Indriyani. Indriyani meaning the sense organs, the set of sense organs, that means sense organs. Parani, it is even powerful than Indriyani Paranyahu. So Indriyas, the sense organs are more powerful, needs to be more controlled than sense objects. Isn't it that true? Let's try to understand the word meaning and then we will try to come back. Okay. And then he tells Manaha Param Indriyepya. So he said the mind is superior or subtler than the sense organs. And then he tells Buddhi tu param manaha. That means intellect is superior or supreme or subtler than the mind. And then in the sentence 2 he said tu, whereas yaha, the one who, parataha, the supreme, buddhe, intellect, is the atma. Sa means here atma. Jnanam. Jnanam means wisdom. So here a simple literal meaning is the sense organs are more important than controlling the external world. And then what happens? More than the sense organs, it is important to control the mind. And more than the mind, how the mind can be controlled. It is with the intellect. So the external world can be controlled or managed with sense organs, and the sense organs can be managed with the mind, and the mind can be managed with the intellect. And with this intellect, when you manage all these things, you will discover that which is beyond intellect, which is the Atma. That is the literal meaning. So let's try to understand that. There are many bars. There are many places that gives you junk food. There are many places in the world that is giving unhealthy lifestyle. Can you go and control all of them? But you can choose. I'm not going to that restaurant. So that is why the sense organs are easy to control, or you need to control the external world with the sense organs. So even though there is a sight which is not good, I can decide not to see. So controlling the word it's less practical, but you can control with your sense organs, you can choose where to engage. That is point number one. Then even if your sense means, for example, the tongue has a taste for this ice cream, with the mind, you can decide how to control. How do I control, right? Means I'll tell you my technique. So Bala and all these people know, like we follow like a calorie budget every day with healthy eating. So how much calorie you have, tentatively you have an idea. So if I finished my calorie budget, even though I get the ice cream, I won't eat it. I love ice cream. And I will eat ice cream if I have enough budget. So the simple rule in the weight loss program or diet control is the calorie intake and the calorie you expend. So if you take more, the weight will go up. That's the primary thing, right? Everything else is secondary. 3,500 unused calorie is 1 pound weight. And where exactly that weight comes, it differs, right? If you eat fatty food, you get more fat. If you eat more protein, you will get muscles, etc. That's a different matter. But what I'm saying is that even though the food is tempting, you can always control what you eat with your mind. So, and how the mind is controlled with intellect. The calorie budget I just said is intellect. So with the intellect, you control the mind. With the mind, you control the sense organs. And with the sense organs, you control how do you engage with the world. This is the sequence. Once again, with intellect, you control the mind. With mind, you control your sense organs. And with sense organs, you try to control what you are engaging with the world outside. Make sense? Now go back and read to all this modern literature, Noom or any other weight loss program, everything. You see an exact same sequence. I have a few screenshots from Noom, which I will share with you. Exact same technique. But they never realized this is given in 5,000 years back. Once again, with intellect, control the mind. With mind, control the sense organs. And with sense organs, control how you engage with the world. And with this, what happens? When you control your intellect, what you are changing is your lifestyle. You're adopting a new lifestyle. You're adopting a new lifestyle which is designed for a human being. When you buy a car, you get a manual, and that manual clearly tells what is the operating conditions for this car, isn't it? You get that. So if you use that operating conditions, your car will have maximum performance and maximum longevity. So like that, for a human being, there is a prescribed set of operating procedures. And that procedure is what is Karma Yoga. So Krishna is concluding this topic. So this lifestyle, known as a yogic lifestyle, which is going to help you to follow that operating procedures designed for a human being, so that you perform very well in the world outside. You will feel happy and contented. And with this lifestyle, you will be able to discover something subtler than the intellect, which is your Atma. So that is the ultimate destination. So that is why I really want to refer you back to that original statement of Shankaracharya. So Shankaracharya tells what? This dharma, vibhitohi vedokto dharmaha pravritti lakshano nivritti lakshanaha jagataha sakshat apyutaya nishreyasa hetuhu. This lifestyle is going to take you to the econo-social welfares in your life and spiritually to the highest destination. So that's why Krishna just summarized that topic. So you wanted to make sure that you're following this lifestyle. And with this lifestyle, intelligence has a key role. With the intellect, you control the mind. And with that mind, you control the sense organs. And with the sense organs, you control how do you interact with the world. And with the teaching, with the help of the teaching, you are trying to see what lies beyond the intellect, paramam, which is the supreme knowledge, and you reach that highest destination. This is the essence of that verse. What you need to remember there is have the intellectual conclusion. With that intellectual conclusion, control your mind. That is where all these strategies we discussed in atomic habits and all those things will come. And with that, you manage your sense organs. And with that sense or controlled sense organs, you go and interact with the world freely and fairly. You are successful. You will be successful.
Rajesh, I have a question.
Sure.
We are talking about controlling the sense. Mind is better than sense, and the intellect is kind of controlling better than the mind. I'm trying to connect this with the emotional intelligence and intelligence quotient. So we always say the intelligence quotient is kind of the same, but emotional quotient, you can, because of the neuroplasticity, you can change it. But then how does this connect with the intellect that we are talking here versus the IQ?
Good question. Intellectual quotient tells your intellectual efficiency. That's what it measures, right? Meaning you're highly intellectual. And that is, you can only improve to a certain extent. I cannot become an Einstein's intellect, in spite of all the neuroplasticity or anything like that. But the beauty of emotional intelligence is, see, as long as I'm not intellectually retarded, the current intellectual level is good enough for me to implement emotional intelligence. So that much flexibility is there. So my intellect means it's a normal intellect. It's not a high IQ, but it is not below the retarded level. So if that is the case, I can use that intelligence I have and I can improve my emotional EI parameter, EI quotient to a desired level. How? Because by implementing self-control, by implementing self-awareness, self-control, social intelligence, and empathy. These are the 4 factors. How one can implement it is using my own intellect. And I need not have a super high emotional IQ for doing that. A normal intellect is good. And Swami Chinmayananda always used to say, this Vedanta and yoga is normally abnormal people, not for the abnormal people. Abnormal people needs what? If their intellectual quotient is beyond, it's a retarded state, they need treatment in the hospital. Vedanta cannot help them. That's the idea. It's a very good question, because the basic intelligence we all have, and that is good enough to implement these practices very successfully.
Thanks, Rajesh.
But that's a good question. That is I actually read that by somebody was asking that question to somebody. Even Daniel Goleman answered that in one of his talk. So that's very interesting. I just borrowed it from him. So I just contextualized it, but it was his answer. Okay, so let's go to the final verse of chapter 3. Okay. So, Anu, could you please chant? It's 43. It's not 44. My apologies.
एवं बुद्धेः परं बुद्ध्वा संस्तभ्यात्मानमात्मना जहि शत्रुं महाबाहो कामरूपं दुरासदम्.
So it's just an extension of what we talked earlier. So he says, Mahabahu. What is Mahabahu? Literal meaning is Bahu means arms. Mahabahu means mighty armed. See, look at the context sensitiveness of Gita. So Krishna tells Arjuna, Mahabahu, oh mighty armed, you're a greatest warrior. But what is that greatest battle you are waging? The inner battle. If you cannot conquer this enemy, remember Krishna was calling something as the greatest enemy of a human being. Where is that enemy lies? Is he with Duryodhana? No, Duryodhana is not the enemy number one. The enemy number one is remember that sequence of words. Krishna said the greatest enemy is within you. It is the binding desire. And where is the location of that binding desire? We saw that, right? The sense organs, the mind and intellect. So Arjuna, the Krishna used this term, Mahabaho, oh mighty armed. He said, you might be able to conquer all the external enemies, but if you really are as a Mahabaho, you need to conquer this inner enemy. So then he said, oh Mahabaho, he said, Bhuttva, meaning here, Bhuttva, the word meaning knowing. Param, so knowing the Supreme. Supreme means knowing the Atma. Param here means the highest Atma. Because knowledge of the Atma is the ultimate solution for this problem. So knowing Bhuttva Param, and then Buddhe to the intellect. Even more than intellect, knowing Atma is the highest. Then Evam, in this way, he said, like you have to keep the mind Atmanam samstapya. So you need to keep your mind steady, right? So once you know that the ultimate, so the solution is Atma, and you wanted to identify Atma as the highest, that is the solution. So what you need to do with your intellectual understanding and with your practice, you wanted to keep your mind samstapya, you wanted to keep your mind stable and pure. And then when you keep your mind stable and pure, what is going to happen? Jahi Shatrum. Jahi Shatru means you will destroy that inner enemy. When your mind is pure and clean, this binding desire will be destroyed. And Kamatma means Kama Rupena Durasadam. So this enemy, which is the inner enemy you're talking, which is in the form of this binding desire, which is very difficult to understand, and that enemy will be destroyed. So once again, Krishna Arjuna address Arjuna as actually the Mahabahu, the mighty armed, and he said, "Oh, mighty armed, knowing that Atma is the highest, what you need to do is use your intellect, use your this knowledge. Intellect here means use this knowledge, what I taught you, which is going to help you to keep your mind pure and calm. When your mind becomes pure and calm, what is going to happen? This binding desire will be destroyed." So in other words, this enemy, it is very difficult to understand. The reason is you think that the enemy is outside, but the real enemy is inside, which is always difficult to understand, and that enemy will be destroyed. Again, it's a praise of Karma Yoga. So when you follow the Karma Yoga, it helps your mind to become pure and stable. And with that stable and pure mind, this enemy will be evacuated and conquered. And eventually you will see the Atma. So where should I start? Karma Yoga. So that is how he concludes the chapter. So Arjuna asked a question, why I am not able to follow the teachings of the scripture? Krishna said, the binding desire is the cause, and to avoid this binding desire, what you have to do is you have to practice this Karma Yoga, which is going to eventually destroy these binding desires. That's it. So follow Karma Yoga. And now this teaching is going to continue in the 4th chapter. 4th and 5th chapter, this Karma Yoga will be discussed further, and Yoga of Knowledge also will be introduced a little bit. And then in the 6th chapter, we will see a detailed discussion on the Upasana Yoga, which is the meditation techniques. So once again, you cannot control the external world. The only way you can control the external world is controlling my own equipments. So how do I control my own equipments? With your intellect, you control your mind. With your mind, you control your sense organs. And with the sense organs, you try to have a control over the external world you interact. And with this teaching, Karma Yoga, you can adopt a lifestyle which eventually will destroy the inner enemy. And know that the enemy external is nothing compared to this enemy internal. So that completes the verses, 43 verses of the 3rd chapter. And next Sunday, what we will do is we will recap this, all the topics discussed in the 3rd chapter. Verse means we will take the series of blocks of verses and try to see. Remember, there are beautiful concepts in this 3rd chapters, which is beautiful. So we'll try to highlight everything, and then we can go to the 4th chapter. Okay, so it's 6 o'clock. Anu, would you mind chanting these 3 verses and then the final closing verse? Before that, so whenever we complete Bhagavad Gita, 1 chapter, there is a statement. It tells, Iti Shrimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvade, whatever is that chapter name, Karma Yogo Nama Tritiyodhyaya. So thus we completed this chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which is in the form of a meaningful, healthy dialogue. That is what is Samvada between Krishna and Arjuna. What was the subject matter of this dialogue? Brahma Vidya, the knowledge about the absolute, and Yoga Shastra, which is the practices by which you can experience that knowledge. That is the subject matter. And what is the topic? Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvade, the 3rd chapter is coming to an end. So I know, back to you.
तस्मात् त्वमिन्द्रियाण्यादौ नियम्य भरतर्षभ पाप्मानं प्रजहिह्येनं ज्ञानविज्ञाननाशनम् इन्द्रियाणि पराण्याहुः इन्द्रियेभ्यः परं मनः मनसस्तु परा बुद्धिः यो बुद्धेः परतस्तु सः एवं बुद्धेः परं बुद्ध्वा संस्तभ्यात्मानमात्मना जहि शत्रुं महाबाहो कामरूपं दुरासदम् ॐ तत्सदिति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे कर्मयोगो नाम तृतीयोऽध्यायः.
Beautiful. Thank you very much.